Reading the intro.
Okay. This week's Inside EVs podcast is brought to you by Electrify America, and we're so happy to be partnering with Electrify America until the end of the year. With Electrify America, you can drive your EV from coast to coast with more than 650 charging stations nationwide and new locations opening every week. Electrify America is bringing EV drivers the freedom they need. Whether you want to plan a weekend getaway, maybe you're off to see some friends or relatives, maybe it's a coast-to-coast road trip. You can ask our Kyle about how that's done using Electrify America charging stations. Well, you can rely on Electrify America's ultra-fast chargers to get you back on the road faster. So, where will you go charging on Electrify America? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what your plans are for this weekend and tell us where you'll go next. And you can learn more at electrifyamerica.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Inside EVs podcast for October the 22nd, 2021. This is episode number 81. Our top stories today: Tesla records a record profit, updates its progress, the Nissan Leaf is being replaced by a crossover SUV, and Foxtron reveals its first 3 concepts. I'm Dominic Yoni, Inside EV's forum moderator and Inside EV's editor. Joining us today is the urbane Tom Logney, Inside EV's editor and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have the masterful Mr. Martin Lee from the EV News Daily Podcasts, which, of course, is available on all the best podcast platforms. And, of course, and hopefully, Kyle Connor joins us from the majestic halls of Out of Spec Studios. He also puts together winsome and whimsical videos for the Inside EV's YouTube channel. Okay, so before we get going, I'd like to ask that you please subscribe to the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button and ring that bell icon for notifications. If you're watching us on Twitch, you can also ring that bell icon for notifications there. All right, so with that out of the way, welcome everybody. So let's kick it off with what we've been driving or charging this week. So Martin, so a while back you told us you're maybe getting an MGZS or ZS.
It's ZS.
EV.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah. We bought one.
Right on. Okay, and a used version.
Yes, absolutely.
A 2020
2020 last year. Yeah, we bought one.
All right.
So
how are you liking it?
I absolutely love it. And just before we went live, and I said to you guys, "Do you want me to go and show you the car in the driveway?" And you said,
Right.
"Yes." So let me put a coat on, and I'll wander out there, and hopefully this will work.
All right.
I was just going to talk about it, but let's show you. So I think I've connected my phone. Hopefully,
is it chilly over there?
Yeah, it's freezing at the moment. So
nice
blue skies, but it's cold.
Hey, remind us where you are for the new listeners.
I'm in a county of Dorset, at the south of England.
County of Dorset. It sounds kind of
I can't
fancy.
hear you yet. Hold on. Let me put some earphones in
Oh.
and go for a wander. Now, hopefully, this might work.
If we can track
I
how
take myself off.
Oh.
Add myself in.
Okay.
That works.
Okay, I can hear you right. Let's go for a walk.
You're a little muffled, but it's okay.
Am I? Okay, it might be because...
A little bit. It's funny, we could hear Kyle roaming around the fjords of Norway better.
Yeah, okay, well, let's see if this works. Am I still muffled?
A little bit.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's not as good as your other mic, but it's fine.
We'll get away with it. Right,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll show you the little red thing that we bought. Excuse the scaffolding, by the way.
Sure.
That's solar going up.
Oh,
So,
nice.
That is, and it is a sunny day, but a cold day today. So that is solar thermal on the front of our roof, and we finally get PV panels on the back, and then the charger we use is made by a company called My Energy. It's called the Zappy, and what this does is it will use any excess solar generation to charge your car rather than going back to the grid. So
Oh, nice.
that's why we bought
Awesome.
that one. So
Zappy.
I don't know if I can flip this camera around or not. or just do that.
It's
So,
this red car.
there
Okay.
he is.
Right on.
Hey, it's our
Beautiful.
it's our new beast. So we're
Is that
super
like
happy.
is that like Nissan Leaf size?
It's probably about Nissan Leaf length, but a little bit higher, more an SUV, kind of more of a crossover shape, really.
Okay.
So we've got a 3-year-old, and it just makes so much sense to have a car that is more practical than the Zoe, which at the minute is parked in my neighbour's driveway, because
Okay.
we've got no more room on the driveway because of all the scaffolding for that. Now, I don't know if I can turn you round. No, that turns you off. I'm not sure I can flip. Now, Kyle knows how to do this on his phone, but I don't know if I can turn the camera around. Hold on, camera. Can we flip this around or not? Front camera, back camera. Done. Are we done?
Yeah.
We're
just
black.
just blacked out there now.
Now
Okay,
it works.
well, we can see the car there now.
Hey, there you go. All right, that's much better. We're absolutely delighted with this. We were, to give you an idea of our thought process, we were really close to an Ioniq 5 on as a lease, but we have a 3-year-old, and we just couldn't square that away with having such a nice car as our main family car. Now, don't get me wrong, this was still £20,000, 18 months old to buy this, and that is still, I get it, that's still a lot of money for many people who want to buy a reasonable car. But rather than go for payments, we thought, you know what, we'll buy ourselves a car. It's not somebody else's, because lease cars have to go back in a reasonable condition. And he's already thrown up in the back of it. So,
oh, perfect.
Yeah, exactly right. So there's his baby seat. But yeah, he's already been kind of sick in the back, and we didn't mind. It's absolutely fine. So here, it looks okay. Now, obviously, super Chinese, which is fine by us. The weirdness about it, there's no climate control, so you set the temperature. It's like going back to the 1980s. It's brilliant that you just can't set the temperature, rather. So you set the heat, but there's no climate, which is a little bit weird on such a modern car. But apart from that, you have your KERS button, which is regen, which is super weird. And it's got 3 drive modes, which don't appear to be massively different. But apart from that, look, it's comfortable. It's got a nice big glass panoramic roof. So
what's the range on this one?
The range on this, I reckon, is probably realistically 160 or 170.
Okay.
But we've been doing some reasonably long motorway journeys in this, and that's about right. So I put about 1,000 miles on this in the last 2 weeks, and starting to find out the little quirks and foibles in it. But enough room as a family car. Weirdness about it is, if anyone hasn't experienced the front of the MG, this comes up, which is not the end of the world. But not really, because you're here. So you have your charger.
Right.
You're like,
I
don't know.
Your audio is cutting out a little bit there.
We're losing you a little more.
So they.
All right.
Sorry. So if you can hear me, I'm kind of probably between 4G and between Wi-Fi, but yeah. So we're super happy with that. It's got some reasonably decent driver assistance in terms of heat, and it's got everything's electric, everything's leather. It's just a family.
All
We're
right.
losing you
All
again.
right.
Losing you again. Close to Wi-Fi.
There, meet him there. All right. So Martin, come in. I don't know if you can hear me, but you're muted. Come in from the cold. Yeah. Then we come back inside.
Dominic, I wonder if he got a discount with the steering wheel on the wrong side of the car.
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to ask him about that.
Hey.
There we go. There
That's better.
Your mic started doing some weird things, so I had to. Mute
Oh,
you.
what a shame! Did it kind of work though?
Oh yeah, until
there you go. That's not bad.
So you popped up the front charging port
Yeah.
on the nose of the car. So, but we're kind of losing what you're telling us. That's not a great place for you. The charger there for you, or it's something wrong
You
with
just
it?
can't see it. You just at the angle that you stand when you lift up the flap, you can't see it. Now they've redesigned that on the new one,
Right.
which is going to be off to the side, and it's going to be a side flap. So they've fixed it. But yeah, hard to believe they shipped it like that for the first generation. Second generation one is out next year. No, it's in showrooms in December, I think. So the front of it,
arriving in November.
Yeah.
As I have in my notes here.
okay, fantastic. Well, it looks a lot like a Kona at the front. Apart from that, the shape is pretty much the same.
So if you're in the UK and you want a new version of this, there's a new version coming in, right? This one will have a 72 kilowatt hour long range battery and a 51, I think,
Yeah.
option. But the long range one gives you 273 mile range. They
Yeah.
say in UK range testing, whatever that is there.
Yeah.
And they said it charges from 0 to 100 in 42 minutes on a 100 kilowatt rapid charger. That sounds a little bit odd.
It's meant to have about 80 kilowatt peak.
Okay.
So I've not seen this one above 60. So I stuck it on an Ionity charger a couple of weeks ago,
Okay.
maybe last week, which was a 350 kilowatt charger. So plenty of capacity, and it did about 62 kilowatts. And the battery was reasonably empty, about 20%. So I've never seen it as high as this, but even this one's meant to charge at 70 something peak rate, but I've not seen that. 44 kilowatt hour gross, I think about 42 usable, so a pretty small buffer.
Right.
Yeah, the battery in that is too small, but
I mean,
we just couldn't justify doing anything else in terms of a work, like what is essentially a working vehicle.
right. It's a good value. How far is London from you? That's where you generally go for business, right?
Yeah, right. So I do need to charge. Last year or early this year, we had a Kona Ultimate for 3 months. We had an ID3, and in all those cars, we had the iPace last year. In all those cars, it was obviously no problem. In this, with about 170 miles motorway range, it does mean a stop, but it's a 10-minute stop. It's okay.
Oh, that's not bad.
London's 100 miles away. So to answer your question, it's 200-mile.
Okay,
round.
so only one 10-minute stop.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
yeah, no, and if you've got destination charging, it makes all the difference. I don't have where the office I go into or the parking that I have near where I go to. But if you could find some parking with destination charging, the size of the battery really doesn't matter too much. Other stuff, the wheels are too small on it. It looks out of proportion. It just needs some bigger. It needs to fill the wheel arches a bit more.
Right.
Other weirdness about it. I can't really think of too many things. There are plenty of quirks on what is a very Chinese car with an
Steering wheel's
MG
on the wrong
badge.
side, of course.
Well, exactly. Yeah, they forgot to put it on the left-hand side. I'll have a word with them about that.
All right.
There you go.
But you're happy with it?
Oh, look, we're absolutely delighted. I don't know how long we'll have it for, but for now, we're utterly happy. So that adds to the Zoe in the driveway, and yeah, we're really happy with as a really sensible family choice. But yeah, it's difficult when the conversation sort of begins with, well, let's get a car for 3 or 4 years, let's get it on finance, let's get a Arctic 5, which is a stunning car,
Right.
to then kind of backpedal and go, okay, well, what fits in with sort of like the really boring sensibilities of having a family? And that's
It's-
like, yeah,
it's
that's
good-
just what
it-
it is.
It's a good, smart financial decision, I think.
Yes, I will take that. I will take the compliment.
Yeah.
Martin, when you make the drives to London, are there multiple places for you to stop, or you kind of pigeonholed into, I've got to stop at this one place to charge, or are there plentiful choices?
Two or three places to stop, yeah, and they're all 60 kilowatt. So they're 120 kilowatt units, split between two. So which is fine. It fits in with the car pretty well.
Hey, you also mentioned that you were considering adding a Citroën Ami. That's the two-passenger
Yes.
quadricycle with a 28-mile-an-hour top speed to your fleet. Now, orders opened up for that in the UK recently, and they received like over 1,000 orders in the first couple of weeks. So, is one of those yours?
No, it's not. I couldn't square away the top speed. I'd forgotten about that. So I
Right.
think 28 miles an hour is not unsafe, but
In the UK, in Dorset County.
yeah, it's unsafe on some of the roads that I would need to go down to do errands and things like that. So
Right.
we know we're not in the countryside where the limit then goes to 60. But once you get onto those single lane roads that are 60 miles an hour, if you're then doing 28, you become it's then dangerous. And so then it
Yeah.
would have been a car that we would have just really used more infrequently than I thought. Yeah, we were going to buy one because it's, I think you
Right.
could probably sell it again in a year's time for what you paid for it because they're a cute little thing, maybe $5,000. But we didn't buy one in the end,
Okay, that's understandable.
purely on the top speed issue.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't consider 28 miles an hour here. I mean, 35 would be the absolute minimum, and even then, it's like you have to be careful of which roads you choose. Yeah,
But
Yeah,
there
not
are a
just
lot
with
of
them.
neighborhood electric vehicles in Florida, right, Tom? I mean, I know people that drive
not
them.
in Tallahassee. There's
Not in Tallahassee? Okay.
No.
I know it's a big state, but
Down in the countryside, that people
yeah.
will ride golf carts around it, and there's some like big like retirement communities. Like what do they call that? There's a huge one down south a little bit where they do drive like golf carts like everywhere within the confines of that community, which is it's rather large. I mean, it makes sense there. It'd be great there, but here not so much.
Yeah. But they've sold 1,000 of them pre-orders now. So, and that's without people knowing the eventual purchase price or any of the details. So, I think a chunk of them will probably go through and take delivery, of
Right.
which I think that is the way they're going to do it. I think this is a to your door service from Citroën. I imagine they'll have a pickup hub somewhere, but the website talks a lot about the direct to your door car. So
Right.
I think a lot of people are going to it'll arrive on a trailer, and that's how they'll get the car.
Well, you can't really drive that down the M5 to that's the highway there, right? The M5
No,
or
absolutely
the
not.
M1. I forget.
You would probably be pulled over for doing 28 miles an hour on the motorway. And I
Right.
don't know, like, our speed limit is 70, but I don't know. Somebody in the comments will know whether it's actually a traffic offense to be doing 28 miles an hour. I know it's a traffic offense to be a learner driver on the motorway, but I passed my test too many years ago for it to be all fresh up in the old noggin. So
Right.
I'm sure you couldn't take it on the motorway.
So Bill B reminds us that it's the villages down here in Florida with a huge community. The villages. It sounds like something from Secret. What's that? Secret Agent Man. Anyway. So Tom, after spending the last few weeks driving some of the most highly anticipated electric vehicles, you've had a bit of a quiet week at home, trying out a new home charging station from Big Oil. I understand.
Yeah.
Want to tell us about that?
Exactly. But before I jump into that, I noticed a comment early on. Anthony C wanted to know my thoughts on the Mustang Mach-E GT, which
true.
Kyle and I both drove that a few weeks ago. And I don't know if you caught the last week's show, but I was in Germany with Porsche, so I couldn't really comment. So Kyle really grabbed that whole thing. I'm not going to go over everything, but really quick, high level, my initial thoughts on it. If I was in the market for Mach-E now and I had the extra, it's $4,100 more than the extended range all-wheel drive Mach-E, I would definitely grab the GT. Now, as far as the GT performance, that's another $5,000 more. Basically, what you get is better handling. It has the forged MagneRide suspension. It stickier tires, different wheels, not bigger wheels, different wheels. The brakes, I think, are a little bit better. Although the GT brakes are still an upgrade over the regular Mach-E. The sweet spot for me is the GT. I think for what you get for the $4,100, it's much faster than a regular Mach-E. It's got that real kick. When you stomp on it, it throws you back into your seat. The Ford's saying 0 to 60, 3.7 seconds. The GT Performance 3.5, that's like negligible. You can't even tell the difference. That's basically tires. That the tires have more grip. So if you want the 3.5, go out and buy sticky summer tires and you'll have it. But the handles better, looks better, I think. Even though I like the way the regular Mach-E looks, I think the little styling upgrades they made really look nice. The wheels are nice, proper tires and wheels on it. The base Mach-E really doesn't have big wheels and they're lower rolling resistance. I think Ford really optimized it for range more than handling. And the GT really gives you much better handling, and the GT Performance that much better. The seats are a big upgrade also. It's got both have sports seats, although the GT Performance seats are even that much better than the GT seats. They really hold you in place. They even have shoulder support, and really like them. So that's my high level overview. I think I'd go for a GT if I had the money now and was looking for a Mach-E, because I think it's that much better than the regular Mach-E.
Right on.
So you won't be surprised to hear that Kyle disagrees with you completely and thinks the only one you should buy is the performance version, because his theory was it's only $5,000 more and you get adaptive dampers, nicer seats, and the way that he drives cars, it's better. Oh, and you get the different driving mode as well.
Right. So no, you get the different driving mode on both.
Okay.
Yeah, you get the unbridled extend. But the thing that I mean, it now you're looking at a $9,100 premium over an extended range all-wheel drive Mach-E. So it's like $10,000, with tax. And I just think the sweet spot is that 4,100 more, where you get a lot more, you don't pay a lot more. If you're an autocross guy, if you're going to take this thing, or gal, if you're going to take this thing out on the track on the weekends, you want the performance for the handling. It really, that Magnum Ride suspension is fantastic. But for, us earthlings that really just want a spirited drive and, carve up some country roads and not really go crazy with the best performance and handling you could possibly get, the GT is all you need, and
right.
save the $5,000.
I'd like to try out that Magnum Ride, though. That sounds really good. Kyle made it sound very appealing.
So John just asked, what's the 0 to 60 on Ford GT? 3.7 seconds, John. And the GT Performance is 3.5. So the performance is negligible. They have the same amount of horsepower, but the GT Performance has 34 more pound-feet of torque, which is at that point, it's really, I think the GT has 600 pound-feet of torque, and the GT Performance has 634.
Right.
So it's really looking at negligible difference there. But hey, if you've got the money and you want the best of the best, go for the performance. I just think the GT is really, what I think would suit most people's needs. And most people don't own a track like Kyle.
Yeah. Yeah. JK mentioned about resale, and Kyle did mention this in his video. He's like, look, if you sell it in a couple of years' time and you get $2,500 back, well, then think of that $2,500 depreciation on the extra upgrade as all the fun that you've had. That was his theory. I mean, that's obviously they're not 2 years old yet, so that was his theory on resale values. But I don't know if you get anything back from having that, or whether the prices start to normalize with each other.
I think they will, Martin. I think, when you consider that you could get the regular extended range, the 98.8 kilowatt hour battery pack with all-wheel drive for the 55,000, and now you're looking at 65,000 for the GT Performance. I think a lot of people look at those next to each on the lot, or when they're shopping for used cars 3 years down the road, and I think that $9,000 premium takes a big hit. But listen, no one's right, no one's wrong. It's what's right for you. The GT Performance would be what's right for Kyle. For me, the GT I think is perfect, and that's what I would grab.
So I just want to mention that Motor One had its Star Awards this year, and the regular Mach-E won for best EV, and yeah, just throwing that out there because it was pretty good. Yeah, they didn't. The competition was kind of there wasn't a lot of competition. There was I'm not even sure actually. I think it was that or Taycan. Yeah, All right. So tell us about this charger then, unless you got something else you want to tell us about Mach-E.
No, that's it. That's it. I just want to do a quick overview. Kyle really went, deep into it last week, and he does a great job analyzing the cars on his first drives.
Yeah.
Shell, or actually, the company that it's actually a Shell branded portable EVSE. God, I think it's called Sky Intelligence, the company that actually makes it, sent me one and asked us to do a review. We do. Pretty much, we're known on Inside EVs. We do really comprehensive electric car charging reviews, probably more comprehensive than anybody else does out there. So definitely, if you're looking for electric vehicle charging equipment here in North America, we haven't really. Maybe we got to get Martin to start doing some in-depth charging equipment from over in Europe, because as you know, it's different equipment, different connectors, and different electricity.
Yeah, different voltage.
Yeah, different voltage is what I meant to say. So they sent me one, and we did the full review on that. Now, it's interesting because Shell has been really moving into the electric vehicle space, realizing that, hey, we need to diversify. This is where the future's moving, and they're on it. I mean, Martin knows. I think earlier this year they bought was it Ubitricity? Am I saying that correctly? Ubitricity,
yes. Yeah.
And that's a large charging network in the UK. Well, I think they're more than the UK. I think most of their stations are in the UK. And then 2 years ago they bought Green Lots here in the US. So they're already diversifying, but now this is their first home charging product, and they have it. It's called the Shell Recharge, and it's portable. You see it in my hand there, and it comes in a 32 amp and a 40 amp units. And now you can see me holding up. It also comes standard with a 120 volt adapter, which is a great feature to have. Very few charging stations or electric vehicle charging equipment now comes with that. Very, very few portable. The car companies are starting to supply them with their vehicles, like the Taycan has it, the e-tron has it, the Mach-E has it, where there's an adapter so you can charge from a regular household outlet. But very few third-party equipment actually had that. The AeroVironment had been supplying that on their portable charger for a long time, but very few other. And that's one of the things we get. A lot of people ask us for. Can you recommend a portable unit that is dual voltage? So that they delivered on that. It's got a great carrying case that it comes with it. Out of the box, it looked like, wow, I'm going to really like this. You can get it in 32 amp, 40 amp. It actually will also automatically derate the power if you plug into a 120 volt circuit. Now, the weird thing on 120 volts, it defaults to 16 amps, but it has a NEMA 515 plug. So that's more amps than a 515 plug or a NEMA 515 outlet can supply. So that surprised me a little bit. But what it does is I think it reads the voltage drop in the line, and it derates the unit. So when I plugged it in, it was initially pulling 16 amps, more than it should. But then like 45 seconds later, it dropped down to 12 amps, and it'll do that on 240 volts also. It'll either charge at 40 amps, 32 amps, 24 amps, or 16 amps. So this is, you can see up on the screen there, I soaked the unit because the test it's outdoor rating.
I love it.
Yeah, I got soaked doing that. Every time I do that, more splashes on me, I think, than anything. Yeah. And I'm out there for a while, like a good 10 or 15 minutes, just drenching the things to try to get water to get into the unit. We do the drop test, which I think you showed before. You had up on the thing. I drop it 5 times from about 5 or 6 feet tall. We freeze the unit to see how the cable performs. And ultimately, I did find some issues with it. First of all, it's not safety certified. So that's a big check against it to begin with. And that's really surprising to me that Shell would put their name on something that isn't UL or ETL listed. Usually the big companies that get involved with these, whether they're making it or licensing their name, will have it safety certified, and it's not. So that was a super surprise for me. And you can see that I'm pulling it out of the freezer there, and you can see how stiff it is. It failed the cable deep freeze test. What I like to do is I like to deep freeze these units at below zero overnight, and then open them up and see how easy they are to bend, just to simulate if this was
Right.
outside overnight, dead of winter in a cold weather area. Some of the cables perform really well and they're nice and flexible. I mean, they're still a little stiff because it is cold, but
Right.
some of them are like frozen garden hoses. And this was, you could see me when I'm picking it up. Like it was hard to even get it on the wall because it was so stiff. So this probably isn't a great unit if you live in the northern states. If you live in Canada, you see how it retains those tight loops. You don't want it to do that. You want it to kind of allow you to bend it until I like to loop it over the cable holster now in big, large loops. I couldn't even try to do it. I was like, you could see me. I'm like trying to bend it. It wouldn't even bend. So yeah, it failed that. But even more seriously, I also pull on all the connections. And on the very first pull, I was able to pull the cable out of the NEMA 1450 plug. The jacket exposed about 1/8 of an inch. And I could see the wires. So that's a big negative on that.
Right.
And it did okay with the drop test and it charged well and everything. But those are some pretty big issues that I have with it.
Right. And plus, to me, I mean, for me, I'm looking at it and it's like the branding is like, man, how many EV people are going to go out and get a Shell branded?
You could start to interrupt you, Tom. Right there is where you could see when I tugged on the plug, you can see, and that's not good. And you can't, that's inexcusable. Now I could have just gotten a bad unit, but still it's inexcusable. Sorry to interrupt you, Tom.
Is that where, so the plug, that is what goes into the wall bit?
Yeah, that's the plug.
Okay.
You could see the plug there on the, and typically if the plug was, I have it mounted with the ground down where I have it plugged in. But if it was ground up, that would be dangling from the wall and putting strain on that connection. And, so it wouldn't take long for it to just pull out like I did there by yanking on it.
Man.
So, yeah, it failed some of our tests. It came up with, we do this charger rater where we have a bunch of different categories and we rate the units for robustness, for power, for the cost, for safety certification, smart charging features, and so forth. And it ended up with a score of 72, which is the lowest score we've had on our charger so far. I translate that into a 5-star rating, and that came out to 3.6 stars out of 5. I then offered my own rating, and I gave it a 3.5, and it averaged at 3.55 for its final rating. And I did give it, it didn't totally get killed because other than the issues, and those were serious issues, it's a nice unit. It comes with a really nice carrying case. Like I said, it's dual voltage. You can get it in 32 or 40 amps. The cable, other than not being very pliable when it gets cold, it was a very thick, durable cable. If you live in a cold weather, warm weather area like California or one of the southern states, you don't care about how well it performs in the cold weather. For that, I think the cable was pretty good, and it's a long cable. It's 25 feet. The funny thing is, if you go to buy it online, it says it has a 30-foot cable, and I always measure the cables to double check, and it was like 25.5 feet. So I reached out to Sky Intelligence and said, hey, this isn't right. It's false advertising. And they said, no, it's 30 feet when you plug it in and stretch it from the tip of the plug to the end of your connector. And that's just not how we measure the cables on EVSE. Nobody does. Everybody measures from the base of your unit to the tip of, not the end of the connector, where it fits into the connector, because that's really the only usable cable length. If this thing's mounted on the wall, you can't have it pulled on a straight line from the outlet to your car.
I mean, well, you absolutely shouldn't do for safety anyway. You shouldn't be anything under tension. Yeah. So, okay. But I do want to say it's very fair that they wanted to send you a charger to review because they know that you're not going to just pay lip service to it being a big brand name like Shell and say, well, it's going to bound to be good because they've got their logo, all over it. So, if they thought their unit was bad, they wouldn't send it out for review. So I do want to praise them for sending you a review version, and they'll have to take on the chin, your comments. Out of interest, because I've watched so many of your charger videos, but out of interest, if someone's watching this right now, they just want to know what's the best one to buy. What has got the highest score of all the ones you've done?
So a lot of people ask me that, and you know what I'm going to start this year. I'm actually going to I've begun working on it. I'm going to have an annual charging station of the year award, and
Nice.
so I don't want to give that away yet. And it's not honestly, the truth of the matter is there is no one best unit. It's what's
Right.
best for you might not be what's best for Dominic. But the highest rated units that we've had so far are the ChargePoint Home Flex, the NLX Juice Box, and the Wall Box. And that was the Wall Box 40 amp unit. They just now sent me their 48 amp unit. I still have like 6 units in my garage in boxes that I haven't gotten to yet. It's the companies are all now just automatically sending them to me when they come out with a new unit, except for our sponsor, Electrify America. And I've got to call them out on this because they promised me one months ago, and
Okay.
I've had it this week alone. I've had 4 or 5 people on Twitter, in the comments on Inside EVs, and the comments on my video on YouTube, on Instagram, send me messages. Hey, Tom, when are you going to review the Electrify America home? And so I've been waiting and waiting for them to send me them. Now, I always say, look, I don't pay for these units. They send them to me to review, and then quite often I send them back because a lot of times they give them to other reviewers. So you don't just get to keep all of them. Sometimes you're on a longer term loan than others. I'm at the point now where I might just buy it off Electrify America's website because I do want to review it, and it'll be the first time I had to buy one. And I promise I'll try not to hold that against them when I do the review. But still,
Yeah.
hey guys, get me out one of these. I'll send it back to you, but let me review it because there's a lot of people that are waiting for my review to buy it. And hey, if it's a good unit and it's a good review, you're going to sell a bunch of them. So get me out one of
Sure.
those if anyone from Electrify America is watching this.
Right on. And we're looking at it now, and it looks pretty nice. It's designed, they say, styled by Ital Design, so Italian design. Wi-Fi ready. Yeah.
It added on paper, Dominic. It looks like it's going to be one of the higher rated charging stations. But we don't rate them on paper.
That's right.
I've got to take it, dunk it in the bucket, do all that kind of fun stuff
Jump in
to
the
it, and
freezer.
put it in the freezer. I won't drop that unit because that's a permanently installed, like, wall mounted unit.
Right.
I drop the portable ones because people are going to drop them. They're
Right.
taking it in and out of your trunk. So yeah, that won't do the drop test, but we'll do the deep freeze, and I'll shoot it with a hose and all that stuff, and do the rest of the full review.
Right on. All right.
Out of
So,
interest, by the way, that's sorry, just because I'm interested, that's a 48 amp unit. No, the new Enel one that they're sending you is 48
No, the
amp.
wall box.
Oh, the wall box is 48
Yeah,
amp.
they already sent me it. I have it in my garage. And
So,
go
in
ahead.
the US, what electrical connection do you need for that? Because all of ours here are 32 amp. It's 7 kilowatt, 32 amp. We're at 240 volt. So what do you need to have installed in your garage or something?
So
48 amps.
Yeah, so if it's up to 40 amps, you could use a NEMA 1450 outlet and just plug it in. And that's how most of the units now are coming with NEMA 1450 plugs, that simply you install a NEMA 1450 outlet on a 50 amp circuit. Technically, you can install it on a 40 amp circuit if the charger's only 32 amps. That's allowed by NEC code,
Right.
40 amp. But we highly recommend that everybody, if you're pulling a new circuit, put in a 50 amp circuit, because in the future, you're going to be glad that you did. Especially one day you might have 2 EVs and you might share that circuit, because you could buy a circuit splitter and put 2 of the stations on your one circuit. So you're going to want 50 amps for that. You're more so than 40 amps. So yeah, that's the way it works. But Martin, if you have a 48 amp unit, you need to hardwire it. Now, there is a NEMA 1460 outlet that technically could support this, but I think the code hasn't caught up with that yet. I could even be wrong, and it might not be allowed to go. I actually know people that do have a NEMA 1460 outlet and tethered a plug to it and plugged in. But we recommend, if you're going to do the 48 amp or higher unit, you hardwire it.
All right.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right. Oh, Misco Electric is watching. Hi there. I wish you were. I wish we could send you the code and jump on. That'd be great to have you with us.
We genuinely don't know where Kyle is. I spoke to him, I reckon 10 p.m. last night UK, so he was probably 5 hours behind me. So I know he's somewhere in the world because he called me last night to have a chat about a thing that we want to do together. And yet we don't know where he is. But that's why we love him. Because we're here at the same time every week. Like, he knows we're here.
I think he overslept. That's my bet.
He has got so many videos to edit. I know he's working. Into
he's working
hours.
like crazy, man. Like,
he's got like a video every day till Christmas, and so I think he was up late. But anyway.
Well, I sent her a link to her Twitter account, so maybe she'll. I don't know if she's able to join us, but if she wants to, she's welcome. That'd be great to have her.
Welcome.
So let's get to some news, shall we? Yeah, we're already deep into it. Hey, so all right. The big news of the week is that Tesla recorded yet another record profit. This is like the 6th record quarter in a row. So it looks like all those startup years of being in the red are firmly behind it. We knew this was coming. The company had already announced record deliveries over 241,000 vehicles a few weeks ago. Still, the people who keep a close eye on the company were surprised at just how well it did in the third quarter with operating earnings of $2.1 billion. That's up 30% from its previous record earnings in the second quarter. We're not going to get too deep in the numbers, but the big deal here, I think, is it hit 30.5% automotive gross margin. That's a gap. So generally accepted accounting principles.
Yep.
And that's 28.8% if you take away like the regulatory credits they received. So that's a really great margin. That's way above what you see in the industry normally. And considering they've achieved this in the pandemic period with chip shortages and everything, it's pretty nuts. So this, along with the expectation they can improve on this gross margin in the future, has pushed the stock price back up to spitting distance of its all-time high. It hit last January. And before anyone just jumps in the comments with they're just making money from regulatory credits, I'll just point out that that was only $279 million this quarter, so the lowest it's been in at least a year, and it's still nice. That's about 14% of the profit overall. So it does, regulatory credits do add to the bottom line, but it's not where they're making their money anymore. That's for sure. So as usual, quarterly reporting is also an opportunity for the company to update us with a call with analysts on just how things are progressing with different products and facilities and everything. So I'd just like to hit on a few of those. So this call was the first without Elon Musk, and I think it went pretty well. The VPs, the vice presidents, responded to the questions professionally. For example, when asked about the tightening regulatory environment for FSD, full self-driving, that's the feature on Teslas, the investigation and broad data request from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, as well as the nomination of somebody publicly critical of full self-driving. The response was exactly what you'd want to hear if you were an investor. So Lars Moravi, he's I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Moravi, vice president of vehicle engineering. He didn't insult the nominee or the agency or anything. He just calmly responded, saying that they always engage with this and other agencies worldwide, working with them on Tesla's approach to active and passive safety, and that they're always cooperative. Then he went the extra mile and said that they expect and embrace this kind of scrutiny of these products and know that the truth about their performance and the innovations of the products will ultimately be all that matters. And then Zachary Kirkhorn, he's a CTO. He also responded to this question, basically echoing that sentiment, and said it was a great thing and that they're excited to partner and work collaboratively with all regulatory bodies. So if Elon Musk were there, I have no idea how he would have answered that. He might have said similar things, or he might have insulted the agency, and he tends to shoot from the hip, and that's not always great. So I don't know. Did anyone else listen to the call, Martin?
I thought it was a bit like when Steve Jobs sadly departed Apple and you put Tim Cook in charge, it felt very much like a glimpse into what Tesla will be like when Mr. Musk is no longer involved. And, that could be next year and it could be in 20 years' time. He's talked about how he's a reluctant CEO, how he never wanted to do the job. But if he didn't, he said, the company would have folded. So I think as an investor, you have to be prepared that he does things that you don't expect and that he might just say, hey, he's backed away from the calls. The company's in great shape. He wants to go to Mars. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a good management team in place. He walks, doesn't walk away, obviously. His net worth is invested in it, but he is not a CEO. And I think it was a glimpse into that. And I really liked it because, as I've said many times before on the podcast, which is not universally liked, I dislike the way he goes about business at times. Not all the time, but I dislike the way he treats other people. I dislike the way that he encourages his more ardent fans to then go on his behalf to take that message and run with it. And that's difficult because it's a conflict because the cars are great and actually what Tesla are doing with technology and energy and grids and storage is unbelievable. So I never want to come across as a critic of the company. And I liked it because, if I could take away that 5% bit of the stuff I don't like, then I'd be delighted. But I'd be ashamed to lose him as CEO. He does obviously clearly more good than bad. And that's just a very, very personal take on it. I liked it. It was very, very measured. And dare I say, a little bit boring. But shouldn't financial calls be like that?
Right. I mean, there would be no Tesla today without an Elon Musk, someone with like just a crazy amount of drive and vision and high expectations and just the speed of which he wants everything to happen. That's really the key to Tesla's success at speed, and that comes from Musk drive, I think. But
and an ability to galvanize a belief in a wider group of people into the direction that he's going, and that is his skill.
We can't see. We don't know behind the scenes how he achieves that. If it's like through through great speeches or more abrupt or gruff means. I don't know, but.
Whatever he does, he's a leader and he gets people to follow him, and he gets people to believe him. That bold confidence that just oozes out of his personality is what was needed to get Tesla to where it is now. There was, and I've said it before on the podcast, I'm not a huge fan of really analyzing all their Tesla's earnings calls consistently anymore, because I think we're at a point now where we're like, okay. They're on solid ground. There was a time when every quarter it was like, we were biting our nails, the people that are electric vehicle advocates, because we know Tesla, it was such an integral part in pushing forward electrification and dragging the legacy OEMs, by their hair into this. And, it's not that they, hated electric vehicles. It was just that it created all kind of problems and challenges that they didn't have to deal with their conventionally fueled vehicles. And we'll get to these EVs eventually, but Musk just dragged them into this, that they had to do it now because he made such good cars and, did things that they were saying wasn't possible. So I think we're at a point now where, things are stabilized and to Martin's point, we might start to see a little bit less of Elon, public facing with Tesla, so he can concentrate on some of his other ventures. And the guy's got a lot of other coals on the fires. And, I think getting the Cybertruck out is a big next step for Tesla. And I don't see Elon really reducing his, visibility that much till that happens. But I could definitely see, once the Cybertruck launches, once production hell, because there's going to be some production hell with that. Once that kind of settles down, I could definitely see him taking a significantly smaller role in the company, and this could have been like that first step, because he kind of sees the light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
On Archie, we showed Archie's comment on the screen for anyone listening on the audio podcast. Archie Clearly, a Tesla fan says, how many other people can afford to speak truth? Elon speaks the truth. So if you're listening to the audio version of that, this podcast, then that's what Archie said. And Archie, no, he lies. That's a really strong, it's a strong word, and people don't like using it. But if it's not speaking the truth, then it is a lie. And we were promised robo-taxis by the end of last year, cars driving themselves across the continent the year before. We're promised full self-driving level 5, which means nobody in the driver's seat and it not defaulting to a remote backup driver by the end of this year. Now, we can't call that a lie because it's not the end of the year.
Right.
But I would stake everything on that's not going to happen. So look, that's where my issues are, is that we have silly people dancing on stage in robot skin-tight lycra suits, and that deflects attention away from all the amazing things that the team are doing, like creating a battery cell line from zero, like not from zero, like they're very, in terms of what's coming into Giga Nevada, they're very, very well versed in bringing in the raw materials and assembling them. They're not just taking batteries that Panasonic sent them like the old days. Now they are fully in the raw material business, right? So an incredible company that is starting things from scratch, and in not even half the time of other companies bringing them to market, whereas other companies iterate. Like if they can be, if we could be 5% better by the middle of the decade, like wouldn't we all slap ourselves on the back and get them? Whereas Tesla are like, well, let's create a new thing that no one's ever thought of. And that's the amazing side of the company. So, and for me, the nonsense around all this self-driving stuff, which I know inflates the share price, and that's why people get excited, it really frustrates me because it diverts attention away from the good stuff like they're doing in terms of battery energy. Like we were having a chat on our group chat yesterday about some of the energy things they're doing. Again, I think it doesn't get talked about enough, but what they're doing there is hugely innovative. Right. So, Archie, no, I disagree. I don't think he always does speak the truth. Of course, his defendants would say to me, he thinks he's speaking the truth. He's just an optimist. And that is, of course, I very much accept that argument that he believes that at the time, he believes what he's saying is the truth.
I think he writes, I would say that he writes checks that his engineers can't really cash sometimes.
Right, but at some point we have to use words that people don't like us using if something is not the truth. And that's just being adults, right? Sure. So I know people don't like it when I criticize those bits of it, and I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But,
it's all right.
I love the company.
Yeah, and we do respect what he's actually achieved. I mean, it's undeniable, like crazy achievement.
I wouldn't be driving the two EVs that I have in my driveway if it wasn't for him.
Right.
So it's a conflict,
Yeah, but okay. But I do, your point about the whole FSD, everything, just a huge amount of attention, and it just does take away from the overall, electrification of transportation thing I think is a lot more important than self-driving. I mean, some people, there's arguments out there that it's just as important, because of there'll be like robo taxis and people won't have to buy cars. There'll be fewer cars on the road. I don't know how all that really washes out, but yeah, I just think it's just a little bit too much controversy going on. It just takes away just from the whole electrification base, discussion. But anyway, let's move on to talk about some of the highlights from this financial recording. So there's a few things I wanted to mention. So Tesla's annualized production rate has passed 1 million vehicles. Again, that's only with Fremont and the China Gigafactory building cars. The Texas Gigafactory should start production of Model Y before the end of the year. They also said that Berlin should start Model Y as well, but we just heard yesterday that the online consultation process with local citizens in Berlin for legal reasons of some sort is going to have to be repeated. So they don't expect to ship any cars from there now this year, I think. And also Drew Bagliano, the SVP of Tesla Powertrain and Energy Engineering, said that the 4680 cells and structural packs would go into production and debut sometime in the first part of next year. So it's a little unclear to me then if the first Model Y is to be produced in Texas will have the structural 4680 packs or the 2170 packs that are being used now at 21Y. So it's, in case you don't know, 4680 refers to the size of the cells. So 4680, it's like 46 millimeters in one way and 80 millimeters the other way, and 2170 or 21 millimeters one way, and then 20 or 70 millimeters long. So, Martin, do you have any insights there, or Tom, possibly?
Well, the plan certainly was to start with the 4680s, right? But
Right, that was the plan.
I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
the timeline's gonna work on that.
No,
I mean, that's
I don't think it will.
Right, but they did say recently that they could use either. So but they can use the 2170s somehow, with it, because these Model Ys made in Texas and Berlin are being made differently. They're casting the whole front and back sections of the car in these huge giga presses, they're calling them. But somehow, I don't know. So it sounds to me like that maybe the first ones are going to get the 2170 cell pack somehow. But I don't know if any listeners have any insight. Feel free to throw us a comment.
It's my assumption at the moment that they'll begin in Berlin with the 2170 cells. I don't think that was the plan at the beginning.
Okay,
I think it became the plan pretty quickly.
that's where they showed us the 2170 cells. They had the cutaway models there during the Berlin. What would you call that? The little fair they had to service the
Gigafest. Yeah.
Gigafest, right?
Yeah.
And
Tom. Why
that's
don't you get on with Tesla PR after the podcast and ask them?
We could ask them the question. We could ask the
Yes,
question.
we could ask the questions. Send that to press@tesla.com and receive exactly 0 response. Okay. So this isn't directly car related, but I thought it was very significant. And Martin alluded to this, I think, earlier. So this last quarter, Tesla deployed 1,295 megawatt hours of storage. The Tesla Megapack factory, though, is currently being built in Lathrop, California, the state of California, by the way, where they've just announced they're moving their headquarters, but they're not abandoning California. Just, they're building a new facility there, and that it shouldn't take too long to finish. But this place is going to produce 40 gigawatt hours of storage a year, pretty shortly. So that really kicks off that aspect of the business. So I thought that was, worth at least noting. That's a huge amount of a revenue source, and just really kind of great because that it really helps our renewable energy situation, right? Because these are being bought by utilities who can use them to store some renewable energies, and also just bolster the existing grid. They provide they make a lot of money just providing grid services to operators. All right. So news on the Cybertruck front wasn't especially encouraging, I thought. We are making progress on the industrialization of Cybertruck, they said, and that it has begun casting the Cybertruck's initial exoskeleton. So, and now separately, we also have a report of a Cybertruck being spotted testing with rear-wheel steering, which is pretty cool. So, Tom, you drove the Hummer EV with this kind of setup. And you still have a Cybertruck reservation, I think. So, does having a rear steer tilt the scales for you?
No, I mentioned this earlier. I'm going to get all of the trucks and then decide which one I want to keep. I have no clear plan or path to getting the Cybertruck. I have no idea. I don't know where I am in the reservation line. I don't know when they're going to start. So I'm sure it's going to be F-150 and Rivian R1T that are going to be battling it out to stay in my driveway for a while before this comes. But yeah, I mean, that's a great feature. It really made the Hummer EV, both the rear steering and in particular the crab walk, which was nuts. I think we talked about that, but it made it so much more maneuverable. It really made a huge difference. I mean, even on the Porsche Taycan with the rear steering, you can feel that. The Cross Turismo I drove recently with it, it makes a big difference. And for a truck, I think it's great. We don't have a lot of information on what degree the rear wheels will turn on the Hummer EV. They turn up to 10 degrees. This is a big vehicle, even though it's 3% smaller than what they came out with originally. I think that's what we're hearing. It's still a big vehicle.
Huge.
And yeah, it's huge and it's wide. And that extra maneuverability will definitely help. I can absolutely see that being useful on road and off road.
And we also saw pictures of it recently with side view mirrors on it. Right now, if you're watching us on YouTube, we just had a photo up of it without the rear view mirrors. Uses the cameras, and so I think Elon Musk said on Twitter that the mirrors, it will come with mirrors because that's the law in the US, but they'll be easily removed. So I don't know, maybe in the aftermarket you can throw on there'll be some way of installing some camera mirrors. I don't know, or maybe they'll make them from other markets and have them in the store. I'm not sure what all the legalities around that are. I'm not sure how much they can really encourage like people to go out and rip the mirrors off and put in cameras.
Well, they'll probably sell a kit, like you'll probably be able to take it to service and have them take the mirrors off and replace them with the side cameras. They're allowed in Europe,
Right?
And most people believe that it's only a matter of time before they're allowed here also. I remember filling out a survey on it like a year ago. That asked me, as a member of the press that's driven vehicles with both, my thoughts on it, and that was that's being taken into consideration for whether or not it's going to be allowed here in the U.S. So I thought that was interesting. That was more than, God, now it's probably 2 years ago that they were actually reaching out and conducting a survey to try to get a grip on whether or not this is something they should allow in the U.S.
Right on. Yeah, on the truck it makes a big difference because that's like a lot of aerodynamic drag. Pickup trucks generally have like larger side view mirrors on them than passenger cars, and that's a lot of drag. So taking those off gives you a bit more range. 10 20 miles, I would imagine, on the charge.
I see a lot of big trucks on the motorways having them retrofitted now over here. The first time I saw it a few months ago, it really caught my eye because you're so used to seeing those big side mirrors. If you're towing a big wagon out the back, then you need to have, and then I see more of them. They sit almost, the cameras are on top, they're level with the roof line, so they're just exactly the same as the kind of cameras that you'd get on the e-tron or whatever, or the little Honda E, but they're just at the very top of the cab of the trucks. And I don't know where the monitors are inside, but whether they come new or whether they're retrofitted, I must find out. But I'm seeing them more and more.
Oh, interesting. All right. Hey, so one last bit of Tesla news. The new Model X has finally begun deliveries, and this one took me by surprise. For some reason, I thought that wasn't going to happen for a while, but yeah, Tesla Model X refreshed with the special steering wheel. That's being delivered to customers, and I'm not sure how the ramp up is going, but I believe we had a story where we've spotted a bunch of them in the parking lot at Fremont. I'm not sure if they're waiting for parts because things are crazy right now, or if they're just waiting to be delivered and they're about to flood the streets. I don't know, Tom, have you heard anything about this?
No, the only thing I heard of is I'm very disappointed. A friend of mine that lives near me had one on order. And he was supposed to I think they initially told him he was going to get it in January or February of 2021. And it just kept getting pushed back. And he kept pushing back and saying, every now and then I touch base with him. So I just touched base with him when this came out that they're starting delivery. And I'm like, are you psyched? And he's like, I just couldn't wait anymore. I canceled my order. So I'm disappointed because I was going to get it as soon as he got it. He already said I could do range tests, driving tests and everything. He lives right by me. So, this is, he would have been looking at almost a year delay. And, let's say you have a BMW or a Ford or whatever, and you're waiting for their next vehicle and you have a lease, they'll let you extend the lease most of the time until that vehicle comes out, and you can just basically go month to month. Now it doesn't always happen, but 90% of the time you're allowed to do that. But since he didn't have a Tesla, he was leasing a vehicle from another company. They're not going to let him extend his lease so he can get a Tesla. So he had to cancel the order. Super disappointed because I was going to be able to do all kind of cool tests and stuff with this. But they've started. I don't know what the number is, but they definitely, which is a good thing. They started delivering them.
Right. So if you have a Tesla Model X refresh, brand new one, come into your driveway and you want to let Tom drive it in the New Jersey area, let him know, I guess. You can get in touch with him. He's on Twitter at Tomolog with 2 M's. All right. And there's actually a long wait for a lot of vehicles right now. I think for some vehicles, some configurations, it's up to 11 months. People are having to wait.
So for the cheapest ones, so standard range plus vehicles or standard range vehicles that are going to get the new LFP cells, it's August or September now. I think it's showing, at least on the US configurator. And I wonder how much of that is to encourage people to go for the higher spec cars. Could be to do with the chip shortage, could be to do with making better margins on those more expensive cars. I mean, look at Mercedes. They're selling more S classes than C classes at the minute. That's crazy. That's just because the chips are going into the S class. They make more money with it. So it could be like that, or it could genuinely be production. You know, it could be any reason.
I mean, they could be putting the chips in the cars that they have, the resources in the cars that they have better margin with. That just makes sense as a business. They have outstanding orders for all kinds of them. So,
and these backups are still driving up the price of used Teslas. I see Model 3s, dual modal long range Model 3s in my area for $50,000 used. Wow. It's more than what I paid for it, and I'm like, maybe I should sell this. The F-150 should be here in the spring, but it actually has got me thinking about it. But I do love my car, and I don't think I'm going to go in that direction.
Well, maybe once you do get the F-150 in Lightning in the driveway,
Well, I do have the Tacoma pickup truck, which I drive a lot in the winter with the snow and everything on the ground. So it wouldn't be crazy for me to just run through the winter with the Tacoma. It would be the first time I don't have an electric vehicle in my driveway in 11 years. But I think I'll probably end up holding on to it. Hey, if the demand is still nuts in the spring when the F-150 is like a month or two from delivery, maybe I'll throw it out there and see what I get for it.
Yeah. All right. So what else we have here? All right. So in non-Tesla news, we learned that this week that the Nissan Leaf will be replaced by a crossover that will be built at the plant in Sunderland, UK, starting in 2025. It will be built on the CMF EV platform, like the Nissan Ariya. So, Martin, I don't have much more than that about this news. At first, I thought they were keeping the Leaf name, but after reading a few different pieces, I don't know if that's actually the case. I don't know. What have you heard?
I had both. So, but I think I just that was just the articles I was reading. It was just the writers of those maybe interpreting it in different ways. So I read it as a direct replacement. This is the new Leaf, as it were, and this is the vehicle which will supersede the Leaf, but it might not be called Leaf. Leaf, of course, made in 3 places around the world: in the US, Sunderland, northeast of the country here, and of course Japan as well. So interesting, they're making this vehicle here. Of course, that factory, if you go on Google Maps and look at the Nissan factory in Sunderland, it's a sprawling area, but you'll see another across the road, another massive. It's in an industrial area, but that is Envision AESC, and that is the battery company they sold off. And they're very much expanding on that site as well. They've done a deal with Nissan to supply the battery packs for these future cars. I would imagine going into this, I've not read but it would make sense because that's as they're going to spool up the production there. So it makes sense to make the vehicle next to where the battery packs are made, and ship them across the road and stick them in the cars. I'm pleased that whether this is the new Leaf or not, that there's actually. If it is called Leaf or New Leaf or whatever, or Leaf 4, I'm just pleased because I feel that the Leaf is beginning to be the forgotten child of the company, and it makes me really sad because it doesn't need to be.
And actually, Kyle has one this week. I know. And
has he got the Plus, the 62 kilowatt hour Plus?
Yes, he's got one in Halloween orange, I believe.
Very nice.
Right. So I was kind of looking forward to seeing that. So we'll have to make sure he tells us about it next week.
Leaf is a great car for if we didn't need something that was slightly higher. My wife likes to sit the elevated sort of crossover position, but she likes to sit above the traffic. If it wasn't for that, a Leaf would have been on our shopping list. They're a fantastic.
It's good value, especially if you lease.
Really good value.
And here in the US, I don't know about the UK, Martin, but in the US, Leaf lowered the price significantly for 2022.
Yeah.
It's $27,400, the base price for a Leaf S. And that does have the 40 kilowatt hour battery. So the EPA range rating is about 150 miles. Was it 159 or 149? I forget, but somewhere right around 150 miles. That works for a lot of people. And everybody wants the range to start with a 2. But I drove 100-mile EVs for 8 or 9 years, and they worked perfectly for me. 150 miles would be fine for a lot of people. 27.4. If you qualify for the federal tax credit, you're under 20 grand for a brand new Leaf with DC fast charging, the DC fast charging standard now. And plenty of states have additional incentives. Here in New Jersey, it's on again, off again, the program, and it's temporarily off right now. It ran out of funding, but it'll be back on within a few months, and they'll retro the people that bought them in the interim. There's an additional $5,000 on the cash on the hood of a sale. You could buy a brand new Leaf in New Jersey in 2022, and it costs you $400, something like that. Under $15,000 for a brand new Leaf. That's nuts. I mean, you're talking less than it costs to buy used cars. So that's a super deal. And plenty of other states, but they might not have $5,000 cash on the hood, but there's $2,500 out there, $3,000 out there. You're still talking under 20 grand for a new Leaf. That is great. Ridiculous.
I wish Florida had more incentive. I wouldn't mind if we had a great lease deal. I drive one under lease. I don't know if I'd want to own one.
I don't do long journeys enough to worry, because people on social media say, but what about thermal management? I don't care. I'm not doing multiple. Some people are, and they should rightly care about that issue with the car, which has been largely solved by now. But if you care about that, then don't buy the Leaf. But that's 1%. 99% of people would have a great time in this car.
Absolutely. Use the right tool for the job.
Yes.
Every EV doesn't have to be perfect for every possible use case. It's like, the people that worry about, it can't tow my boat up a 5,000 foot elevation change on a mountain. Meanwhile, they don't own a boat and they don't live where there's mountains. You worry about what fits what you do with your vehicle, and don't worry about these hypotheticals that aren't going to happen. A lot of people, for a lot of people, 150-mile EV would fit perfectly in the uses that they use a vehicle for 95+% of the time.
Right on. All right. So also we should talk about Taiwan's Hanhai Technology Group, aka Foxconn, contract manufacturer of the iPhone for Apple, revealed its first electric vehicle concepts under the new Foxtron brand. That's a joint venture between it and the Taiwan automaker Yulon Motor, designed by Pininfarina. One of them, the Model T, is a bus. There's also a crossover called the Model C, and that's what you're looking at on your screen there if you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch. And there's also a sedan called Model E. So they are based on the company's MIH EV platform. I'm not sure how the bus is actually based on that platform, but the crossover will be sold in Taiwan beginning in 2023. While we understand that the sedan will be sold by an as yet unnamed automaker outside of the country, the naming scheme isn't as impressive as the specs are. The Model E sedan, for instance, has 750 horsepower. The 0 to 100 kilometer or 0 to 62 miles an hour acceleration is 2.8 seconds. And it has a 466-mile range, they say. Those ranges could be optimistic. I'm not sure what test cycle they're using, but still, even in the most optimistic test cycles, that would still be 320, 350, 100 miles. It's a lot of miles. See, the Model C, which has a third row, also does 0 to 62 in 3.8 seconds, which is still crazy fast, and offers a range of 435 miles. So just going back to the bus, Foxtron says that it has a high rigid body design and protection. Its protection meets Federal Transit Administration (FDA) regulations and standard, which we read as a hint that it plans to sell that in the United States. So, and range on the bus is said to be 400 kilometers or 248 miles, which, depending on the use case, I guess, is good. So Foxconn has a deal with Fisker, I believe, and has also bought the Lordstown Motors factory. So partnering with Lordstown Motors. So I don't think Fisker is going to sell a car that's styled by Pininfarina instead of Henrik Fisker. So I don't know. Tom, do you see any of these coming here?
Well, I don't know, but what I do see, that first one, the white and black one, doesn't that look like the Byton M-Byte?
There you go.
Right?
Doesn't that look like the Byton? It really does to me.
Who designed the Byton? Is that also Pininfarina?
No, it was
Okay.
the BMW's ex-designer that left BMW. God, what was his name? Oh, I could see his face. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
But that really that as soon as I saw that at first, I was like, geez, that really looks like the M-Byte. I don't know, Dom, all the Chinese manufacturers have plans of going global. They all want to be in Europe, they all want to be in the US to sell their cars here. I would think there'd be some kind of trademark issue. I think they'd have to rename them if they came here, right? Could they call the cars the Model E and the Model T here in the US? That Ford owns that trademark, so they'd have to rename them. And then there's those those nasty tariffs to deal with. So that will dramatically increase the cost of them, but to the point where they're really not competitive. I mean, that's one of the big problems Polestar has here in the U.S. is that tariffs make the vehicles a lot more than what they had originally planned on selling them here for. So I don't know. I think we're going to see the Chinese vehicles more and more in Europe, and then eventually more and more in the U.S. I think we're kind of where the Japanese automakers were in the late 60s now, the Chinese companies, and we're only a half a decade or so away from starting to see a lot of them cascade across Europe and the US. And I can tell you, being somebody that's firsthand driven them and experienced them, they're good vehicles. They're high quality. They're not, you think that, they make junk cars from 10 years ago where Chinese vehicles were not competitive. It's why they didn't even try to really sell them internationally, because they were such inferior quality. That's not the case anymore. These are really well-built, good vehicles, and we're going to start seeing them here.
Well, I've just bought one. So I bought a car that was made in a Chinese factory by a Chinese company with Chinese bits. And a British logo on the front of it. It's a Chinese car. Like, I've got no problem with it. It's and it's a very cheap one. So,
and you can buy Neo now in Norway, at least, right? I don't know the rest of Europe. Can you buy Neo?
No,
and
Neo,
Xpeng too.
Xpeng. Neo go to Germany Q4. Neo announced Germany will be next, and it'll be Q4 next year. So they're going to really spend a year in Norway and get it right. And then Neo will. That's, I think it's official actually. That's it's Q4. That was I think a statement, or at least a line they put out. But I wouldn't bet against any company that is an expert at assembling consumer goods like the iPhone at knowing how to assemble something. So I know people in the comments are asking, like, where will it be made? How, like, who's going to make these vehicles? That's all very well and good, making a concept car. Who's going to make it? Well, they're going to make it. They will, because they're really good at making stuff. And
and some of these will be made in the U.S., so they won't have the tariffs with the purchasing the Lordstown factory.
I guess so, actually,
So that's, you have to consider that also.
If they do make them in that old Lordstown factory, then it's made on home soil. Like, I think you have to start taking these more and more seriously. Now, what premium they can command, or whether they have to come in at the bottom end of the market, I don't know. But if you look at the vehicles, that it looks familiar for certain things. And actually, there's a rear shot of that looks like an ID4 to my eyes, at least. And then there's the other one, which is the Lucid. To my eyes, it's a Lucid.
I like this better than the Lucid. sorry.
It's a Lucid Air. Let's face it.
I don't like the chrome strip across the front on the Lucid. So I like it. I don't mind the light bar though. I don't know.
That looks cool. All concepts often look cool. But I'm not worried about how they'll make it. I'm more worried about the market. So is there a market for the? But again, maybe I don't understand the US market enough. Would somebody go and buy one of these if there's not a dealer service network, etc., etc.? We're very much more compacted over here in terms of how close stuff is. You know, if you are then 6 hours away from a service for a car that goes wrong, or more, I guess there's some parts of the US, you know, if they've got a few hubs in central places, you're looking at putting this on a trailer for a long time to fix it. Is someone going to buy a car like that? I don't know. I'm not worried about them making it though.
I mentioned Foxconn, the Foxtron parent company has a lot of money to throw around to, build out a network like that. I would imagine. We should show us the interior of that Model E. That looked awesome, pretty nice. It's like, how do you convince people, to buy a Chinese car? Give them like crazy, really plush looking, interiors is one way, I think, and exterior styling too. Let me.
I need to apologize as well. I keep saying, look at this on screen, and I'm aware that we have thousands of listeners on the podcast version. And I think somebody even emailed me this week to say, would you stop saying, they were nice. They were nice about it, but they were like, Martin, you often say, look at this. And I think I've done that about 10 times today. I'm very, very sorry.
Yeah. I try to mention, if you're watching this on YouTube.
Oh no, Twitch, you're far better than I am at doing it. Yeah, no, they were complaining about, they sent me an email saying, stop saying it. Sorry.
I also think a lot of the service issues are going to be done with like what Tesla had the Rangers. I think a lot of the service from all these startup companies is going to be done on site. And they'll build out regional service centers if there's really serious problems. They could even partner with brick and mortar franchises like Mavis Tire or something like that, and have local service done. They can almost like rent stalls when they have a car that needs to be fixed. I know there's logistics issues with that, but I think that they'll sort out the service issues, relatively simply.
Just to follow on that whole Chinese car thing, Geely's Zeekr 001 has now entered production in China. So that's kind of cool. That's built on so Geely is like a huge company. It owns Volvo and different automakers. And they have a platform called the C platform, SEA. And so this is going to be built on that. And I believe the body this is kind of like the Lynk & Co styling, but under the new Zeekr brand. Anyway, I really like the way it looks, and I'm really excited about like platforms that are used across, different automakers for scale and to help bring the price down. Yes, the sustainable electric architecture platform. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But speaking of made in China, the Ford Mustang Mach-E has entered production in China. I don't know.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I had forgotten. It's a global car, right? It's in Europe, it's in North America, and it's going to be in China. And so that's pretty exciting. And that helps with, I guess, I don't know how much it helps with scale. I guess if the batteries, depends where the batteries come from. If they're coming from China, or if they're included in their contracts, from, I guess, where they source them, probably from Korea. Tom, do you remember where they get their batteries?
I'm not sure for the Mach-E, to be honest with you, especially in China.
I
don't want to say what I think. One thing that I say, the Mach-E has intense competition in China. There's so many like crossovers that are kind of this size there, that from domestic brand companies there. It's a tough sell in China. I love the Mustang Mach-E, but the price is going to be really important for them to be able to get this up to any kind of volume, because there's so much competition.
Does the Mustang name have any kind of cachet in China?
I honestly don't think so. I don't think it has. I think people are aware of it, but it doesn't really carry that real cachet that it does, say, in Europe or certainly in the U.S. I don't know if it really ever attained that level of fame, the Mustang, especially to younger buyers that are more apt to be buying electric vehicles. Many of them probably never even heard of it unless they were a real car enthusiast.
Right. So someone is asking us in the comments about Aptera. So they released their or is it Aptera being overlooked?
Never. We did not a whole episode, but we
had
gave them a whole segment and doing an interview with them. So we very much don't overlook Aptera.
Yeah, we've had them on the show, but they've just released the third alpha prototype, the Lunar Soul. Let me just fast forward to the end because it looks great on the shot. See, can you see that there? Yes.
Yeah. Stop saying that. For the audio listeners.
Oh,
let's
right.
let's describe it. Let's describe it.
It looks. It's pretty basically the same design as they had, right? It's just, it's still the.
Yeah, it looks great. So, have we talked about Aptera since it was on Leno? I'm not sure we have. Was it? I can't remember last week's show. I'm getting muddled. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go and watch the Jay Leno's Garage segment on Aptera. And it's really good because he's interested in how cars come to life. So he asks different questions than typical things you'd watch. It's why I love watching him, and it's really interesting with the two guys who we had on our show being very honest about, well, hey, that's not finished and that's not done and don't touch that, and but then they let him go and drive it and he loved it.
Right. Chris Anthony and Steve Fambro are the co-founders of Aptera. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the beta. This is kind of nice and it's great to see, but I'm itching for the beta. I want to see what's how it's developing, basically. So I hadn't actually included that in today's show, but there it is. All right, and I guess what's our time? Yeah, we're up to our time, but we should also mention that Toyota has announced a $3.4 billion battery-related investment in the United States. So that's kind of a big deal for them. They do have the BZ, was it the BZ4X? Is that right, Tom?
It's a terrible name, whatever it is.
Yeah, I can't
Beyond
remember because it's that bad. And I don't. I'm so down on Toyota. It's so hard for me to get excited about what they do and what they say. It's I know we had that. They did make that announcement, $3.4 billion battery related investment. But just take a look at what some of the other companies have already announced what they're going to. And I think that was between now and 2020, right? That they're going to invest $3.4 billion.
2030.
2030. I'm sorry, that's what I meant. So take a look at what some of the other companies have announced that they're gonna invest in batteries. Between now and 2030, and this is going to be mostly for hybrids. Hey, good on you, Toyota. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll see if you're relevant by the end of this decade.
As someone said to me on Twitter this week, like Toyota have, if not the lowest, one of the lowest fleet CO2 emissions because of their hybrid technology.
Sure. And that's a good thing.
We have CO2 fines for exceeding certain limits across the fleet of every car you sell in the EU. And it's pushed many of the OEMs to either, pool with the likes of Tesla and make a financial arrangement to buy some of their clean credits, but also it's pushed them into making EVs, right? So it has forced them with a big stick, or the threat of being hit with a very big financial stick, to make electric vehicles. There are others that want to make electric vehicles because they see that's the future. The likes of Tesla, the likes of those that, like, I think VW see a big electric future. They want to go there quickly, so there's a big pull factor. I think Toyota, increasingly, the more I think about it, are caught in this no man's land of, there's no threat from being all the fines that are being dished out because they've got very low fleet CO2 emissions because of the hybrid technology. Right. So actually, they're in a really good place here. They're selling lots of vehicles. If you're sitting around the boardroom table, there's probably lots of green ink everywhere on your spreadsheet. So I think that I'm down on them as well, but I'm starting to try and put myself in the boardroom of Toyota and think, what's wrong with hybrid technology? Now, again, back in the real world, a huge amount, and so it's irrelevant to me now. But I think it's the innovator's dilemma.
It is.
That's what we've talked about 100%. What Martin just said, the innovator's dilemma. Toyota has dominated hybrids over for a long time now. There was one point where they were selling over 80% of the worldwide hybrid vehicles. I'm not sure where they're at right now. And they're incredibly profitable for them. And they just keep making them better and better. We talked about incremental improvements before, that everybody's satisfied with 2, 3, 4, 5% improvements per year on their existing vehicles. And going full electric scraps that. It wipes away all the advances they've made on their hybrid systems, and they don't want to let go of that yet. And yes, I get it. I get why they're taking that position. I can disagree with them. I can say, I'm not happy with them over that at the same time. But as a dollar and cents, decision, it does make a lot of sense for Toyota to push back on fully electric, to lobby against it at every chance they get. And they do, make no mistake about it, around the world. Yeah. Toyota, more so than any other automaker, lobbies, pours more money into slow walking, fully electric vehicles than any other automaker in the world, because it makes sense for their bottom line. So in that respect, I totally understand why they do it. I disagree with it, and it's why I won't buy another Toyota. I mentioned earlier in the show, I have a Toyota Tacoma. When that gets sold, when I get my F-150 Lightning in the spring, I'm done with the brand. And I've owned like 10 or 12 Toyotas.
Right. So they're losing hearts and minds. That's the issue. So they have this BZ4X coming out next summer, or next spring, summer. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to see there. I've seen some excitement around that vehicle. If it's nice, I'm wondering if the man goes like crazy for that thing, if it's like really good, if it'll kind of like turn on some, light bulbs over there, at Toyota headquarters, and say
they could sell far more RAV4 Primes than they bring to the US.
I mean, they could. I mean, I don't know if that's because of the chip shortage or what's. It's hard to say what's going on. I know there's a big demand for the RAV4 Prime, and people like that. That's a plug-in hybrid vehicle.
A good one,
right? A good one with like lots of range. It's
absolutely.
It's a good. If that works for you, I mean,
if they wanted to test the water, to go like, maybe we're like just test the electric water. Like, are we sure that hybrids they could flood the US with those? Don't give discounts and see who buys them, and they'll find out they sell every single one they can make.
Yeah, absolutely, so. Martin. Yeah, absolutely. They would sell so many RAV4 Primes. It's the most powerful, I think, RAV4 ever made, and it goes like 50 miles per charge on electric. Most people are going to do 80% of their driving on electric, it's a shame that they're only kind of sprinkling them into the market and giving, a fifth of what they could sell, maybe less.
See, and historically, like, so back in the 90s, Toyota went in, they went into this hybrid, they went in developing this hybrid technology, and they made a loss. They sold Prius at a loss for years. And then, they finally turned around and became a huge money maker for them, and they became a huge technology leader. And I'm just shocked that they didn't follow that same path with all electric vehicles. And it's like, oh man, it's kind of disappointing. Yeah, but I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I didn't want to end on a bad note, but they do have. Someone points out that they do have the Lexus 300e in Europe. But it doesn't sound like they're super pleased with it. Okay. Well,
we'll wait and see.
Okay. Well, maybe there's except, just thank you all for joining us this week. It's really great that we have a couple hundred people watching us live here on YouTube and Twitch. And, that's really awesome. We really appreciate it. So let's just say that brings us to the end of our show this week. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them on the Inside EV's forum podcast thread or on our YouTube or Twitch comment sections. If you like the show, please give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on YouTube. And don't forget, you can find and follow our panelists on Twitter. You can find Tom Longley at Tomolog, TOMMOLOG. That's Martin Lee is at EV News Daily. Kyle Connor, even when he's not here, he's still at It's Kyle Connor. And I'm at Dominic_Y. Ciao.